Now we are to the point of cutting our table to its final length. And as I laid it out in the beginning, I've got my end line here pretty much marked out real well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Festool track saw, which I really like. Really good tool, great for doing long cuts like this across the end of a board. And it's simply a track that the bottom of the saw runs in, and it'll keep that cut real nice and straight and real stable on that board. The way it does that is we've got these two clamps that are going to clamp our piece down. There's a channel under here. We'll slide that under there, bring that right up to our line. Lock that down. Not real tight at this point because I'm invariably going to have to move it a little bit. And we'll come back and slide that same clamp in on the other end. And obviously I'm making sure that this piece is far enough off the end of my workbench so as not to cause any damage to my workbench. What I want this to do is be perfectly 90 degrees from the edge of my board. So I'm going to take my speed square here, my large speed square. We'll set it on there. I'm going to pull it right up to that. And by God, it is right on the money right there. So I'm going to lock this end down. We'll go back here to this other side, do the same thing just to check it out to make sure that we are right on the money, right where we need to be. I like that. And I know from when I did my markings on my board that my biscuits are about 5 inches in from that end line, so I don't run the risk of running over one of those biscuit pockets. I'm going to take my track saw here. And it's got the track here that slides into the track here. So this thing runs in a perfectly straight line. And when you've got a good sharp blade in, you've got it adjusted well, it makes that line on there just about a glue-ready joint. It cuts really, really well. So I've plugged it in. I've got power here. I've taken my saw blade and I've moved the depth of the cut up to about half the thickness of my piece, just because I like to make 2 or 3 passes depending how thick this is. Be 1.5 inches, I think I'm just going to do 2 passes on this, and it's primarily just to make it easier on the saw, easier on the piece, easier on me. So I'm going to get it back here. I'll step over here for just a second and grab my ears. Little Benjamin wouldn't see the humor in my not protecting my hearing when I'm doing this. We'll get our ears on. We're going to cut the first rind through this. I like to take my cord, strap it up over my shoulder like this so it's not in the way. We're going to hit this lever to start the engine or start the motor on it, and then there's another level that releases the headpiece to come down, so it's called a plunging track saw. There we go. We're cutting about halfway through in terms of the thickness. Does a great job of cutting on that. And of course, when you're done, you release it so it comes up. It buries the blade inside the guard on here and let it sit there until it comes to a complete stop, which is what I always recommend. And there we're about halfway through our piece. So I'm going to take the adjustment on here and the stop. I'm going to lower that. Good enough to get us through the rest of it. Now, when I'm cutting this through, I'm not going to grab this offcut piece. I've seen too many people do that. They grab this thinking they've got to hold it, and what happens is that blade is coming through. They end up running over their fingers and knocking the end of their fingers off. So when you're cutting across like this, just let that piece fall where it may. It's not going to hurt anything. Make sure your feet aren't underneath it. Here we go. Ears are back on. Real good there. Come on back. There we go. Let's fire it up and make that cut. And we got our cut all the way through. Our blade is retracted. We're going to pop our saw up off of our track. I always set it on the floor just because I've seen too many tools get knocked off a bench. You set them on a bench or somewhere, and something happens and they get knocked off. We're going to take these clamps off of our track, the track saw. Loosen it up. It'll go off a whole lot quicker. There we are. That end is cut and ready to go. Yeah, I could have taken my vacuum setup and hooked it up to the saw, which I probably should have done, but I didn't. So now I'm going to simply turn this end for end. Like that, just because all my tools are down on this end of the bench. And we got that where we want it. I'm going to go grab a couple clamps quick and hold this down to my bench real quick. All the way back over here on the clamp rack. And we got 2 heavy duty pinch clamps to do that with. Can you tell I have a lot of projects going on in my shop? I've got tools everywhere, projects everywhere. We've got enough to clear that. I'm going to lock this down onto my workbench so that it can't move. And one of the things that I noticed when I was coming through on my track is it was a little bit on the sticky side. So I'm going to go over here and grab a little bit of paste wax. All your tools in your shop, you should keep waxed up really, really well. It makes them slide a whole lot easier across your material. You can use a lot more finesse than force, and that sure makes a difference in terms of the ease of use and the safety. If it's something where you're putting a lot of pressure to it and having to exert undue pressure to get your piece to go through, you're asking for trouble. Asking for trouble, and if you're asking for trouble, it will find you every single time. We got that set up here. We're going to grab a tape measure quick. And our pencil. I know I want this to be 84 inches long. Okay. 85 and change. Where did my list for this project go? I'm going to make sure I check that to make absolutely certain that we're at the right length. Yeah, and we're going to 84 inches. That's our end length. So we're going to come on here and mark 84 on that side. We'll go back to the other side. Mark that at 84 as well. That way when I lay my track across there, I can mark those 2 lines together on my track. Gonna put our clamps back on. Set that one right on that new line that I made. Put it roughly in place. Get that lined up. I'm going to grab my combination square again to make sure we're nice and square. And boy, it's right on the money there. Real good there. And here's another point that we should check, because ultimately this top is going to go on this base, and it's going to be no overhang on either sides or the ends. So I'm going to check this to make sure that my measurement for my length is exactly what this is. We are right at 84 inches there. I can go down here and I can measure from that far end to the side of my cut here, which is going to be right on the money at 84. Let's check one more time that this side is right on the money for square. Right there's where that needs to be. These clamps that hold this track down are absolutely ingenious. They do a fantastic job of holding that piece in place. Let's check this measurement one more time. Just triple check. We are right on the money at 84. Let's grab our ears. Let's plug our saw back in. Let's take our cut back to half the thickness. Make sure that wax that we just put on the base of our saw is doing its job, and it slides much easier. Now that we've put that on there, let's get the cord out of the way, get our ears back on. Let's plunge this in there and make our cut all the way across the end of our tabletop. There, we're most of the way through. I drop this down another ½ inch or so, and we're going to make our final pass. Keep our feet out of the way so when that falls, we're going to land on them. And there we go. We've got our top cut to final length. We're done with our track saw. And boy, that Festool track saw makes just a beautiful end on there. That cuts so nice. Keep them tuned up well. Keep that blade nice and sharp. They're going to do a fantastic job for you. There. Our tool is cut to length, and we'll set that on the floor again. I've had a couple times here in the shop where I've set tools on the top of a bench, particularly hand planes. Had it happen a couple times, and people come over, we're doing stuff in the shop, somebody turns a board around in the shop, they knock a plane off, it hits the floor, and pretty soon it's toast. There we go. So now our top is perfectly as wide as our base and perfectly as long as our base. The next thing we're going to get into is start the process of sanding this down completely, and our glue joints are so right on the money from that you can't even feel the joint. You can see where I marked for the biscuits and all, but you can't feel any of the joints. So it's nice and flat. It's not going to take long to sand this. When we come back, I'll get out the sander and show you what we're going to do to finish the top of this off.